Okay, you're passing the mashed potatoes, and someone says to you, the housing market is about to crash way worse than 2008. I saw it in an article. Recently, housing analyst Melody Wright told Newsweek that the U.S. is headed for a price correction worse than 2008, and that home prices could drop as much as 50%. So if you've seen that headline and thought, should I sell now? Should I wait? Are we about to go on clearance? Stay right here, because as a full-time Denver realtor who actually lives this life every single day, I have a few things to say to Miss Wright and to anyone who's sending you that article in a panic. Hey y'all, you know me. I am a Denver real estate agent with Nostalgic Homes at Compass. On this channel, I give you straight talk, no fluff, real estate, what's actually happening in the Denver housing market, not just what gets clicks. If you're tired of doom scrolling housing headlines and you just want calm, honest breakdowns, hit that subscribe button and tap like below so more people can see this before they make a rational decision based on fear. So let's start with the headline that lit this whole thing on fire. Newsweek runs a piece quoting housing analyst Melody Wright saying that the U.S. is heading for a price correction worse than 2008. Not only that, she predicts home prices could fall by as much as 50% over the coming years. 50%. Of course that's going to explode on social media. People are exhausted by high prices. Affordability has been brutal. Renters want this to be true so badly, so do many others. Homeowners read that and think, wait, is half of my net worth about to evaporate? So I'm not at all surprised that this went viral. But here's the problem with what she said. A dramatic national prediction makes for a great headline and a pretty terrible decision-making tool for real humans in real cities like Denver. So Miss Wright, if you're watching this, thanks for getting everybody's attention. Now let's talk about what this actually looks like on the ground here in Denver. First big point, there is no single U.S. housing market. Real estate is wildly local. What happens in an overheated Sunbelt suburb full of investor-owned new builds is not the same as what's happening in an established Denver neighborhood that people have wanted to live in for decades. Right now in Denver, here's what I'm actually seeing. Prices have come off the absolute frenzy peaks in some areas, yes. More homes are sitting longer. We are not in the 3 days, 25 offers, waive everything, free tacos for a year territory anymore. We're seeing more price reductions because sellers who insisted on 2021 pricing are being pulled back down to earth. Buyers finally have a little bit of leverage again. They're keeping inspections, asking for repairs, negotiating credits. That is called a market reset or normalization. It is not the same as we're about to replay 2008 and cut everything in half. A 50% drop nationally would mean some markets dropping way more than that and others not really moving at all. It would mean widespread distress sales, unemployment spikes, and a lending environment that is totally different from what we have now. Could certain pockets of the country get hit hard? Absolutely, especially places that overshot on prices, built way too much, or are very investor heavy. But to take that and say, cool, that means your Denver bungalow is about to be 50% off next year, is a stretch. So let's talk about the fear narrative for a second. Big, scary predictions sell. You know that. Worse than 2008. Prices cut in half. Housing collapse incoming. That gets clicks. It gets views. And it gets shared in your group chat with 17 fire emojis. But here's what I want you to notice. The people writing the headlines aren't the ones who actually have to sit across the table from a real buyer who's been renting for 10 years, a real seller who just went through a divorce, or a family that has to make a move for a job. I do. So Miss Wright can make a bold national call, and she might even be right about certain regions or certain segments of some of the markets. I am not at all saying that she's clueless. She is a housing analyst, by the way. What I am saying, though, is when you blast out worse than 2008 and 50% price drop without any nuance, regular people freeze. They delay buying when it might actually be a good time for them. They panic about selling when they don't actually need to. Some people sit on their hands and do nothing because they're waiting for the perfect, magical bottom of the market. And in real life, the market rarely gives you a neat little bell that rings and says, "Okay, everybody, prices have dropped exactly 50%. You may proceed." It just doesn't work like that. All right, let's bring this home to the Mile High City here in Denver, because that's why you're here. Here on the ground, in reality, I am seeing in the Denver Metro for buyers, you have more choices. You're not fighting 15 offers on day one. You can usually get inspections, negotiate repairs, and sometimes even snag seller credits. Are you going to steal a house for 50% off next year? I would not plan my life around that. For sellers, you can't price it like 2021 and expect a line out the door. You can still sell successfully with the right pricing, presentation, and expectations. You might give some concessions or negotiate more than you did a few years ago, but that's a normal, balanced market. For homeowners that aren't moving, your estimate might have ticked down a little bit from its all-time high. That is not the same thing as being underwater. If you bought before or early in the pandemic, you likely still have a solid equity cushion. Do we have challenges right now? Absolutely. Affordability is still rough everywhere. Insurance and taxes are higher. Not everyone who wants a home can buy one yet. But that's a different conversation than everything's about to be half off. Way worse than 2008. So what should you do with Miss Wright's prediction? Here's my advice. Use big national calls like this as a prompt to get local data, not as marching orders. Let them nudge you to ask questions, but don't let them make decisions for you. Zoom in on your actual timeline. If you know you want to be here in Denver for 7 to 10 years, the exact month-to-month wiggle in prices matters less and less than it does for you to get into the right home with the right payment. If you need to sell in the next 12 months, focus on strategy. That's pricing, prep, and timing. Not on what if prices drop 50% in 4 years. Talk to someone who's actually writing contracts in your city, a local lender, a local agent, not just a national headline. I always tell my clients, real estate is not about winning an argument on social media. It's about making the best move for your life with the information that we have right now. So, Miss Wright, I appreciate you sounding the alarm. Big, bold predictions absolutely have their place. But for my Denver people watching this, before you assume that your house is about to be worth half as much, or that you can sit back and wait to buy at some magical rock bottom price, check in with what's actually happening on your street, in your neighborhood, and in your price point. If you're in the Denver metro area and you want a no drama, no pressure look at what this market means for you, there's a link in the description where you can reach me directly or set up a call. We can just hop on a quick call, look at your numbers, and figure out whether waiting, buying, or selling makes sense for you. Not for Miss Wright's model, but for your real life. If this helped calm your nerves, or at least gave you a new way to look at the headlines, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with the friend who's continuously sending you housing crash articles at 11 p.m. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.